Welcome to Retire Coast, where we discuss all things retirement, life on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and your financial welfare. Bill Anderson, your host, is a serial entrepreneur having created many successful businesses and holds a real estate broker's license, speaks about personal experiences with each topic. Listen, learn, and improve the quality of your life.
Thanks for coming back to Retire Coast. We're going to talk today about vacation properties, a second home, if you will, or a vacation rental. Or they can all be the same thing at different times for different people. And we're going to focus mainly on beach areas, and that would go from Texas, wrapping around the Mississippi Gulf Coast, going around Florida, and up to the New York area. And I want to talk to you about what it means to buy a vacation home today in 2024 and in 2025 coming up. Before too much longer, there won't be too many changes in the trends that are occurring now. This is to bring you up to date. We already have an episode that we put out a couple years ago when things were a little more brisk on the vacation rental side. A number of things have changed right now, and I want to let you know what those are. I'm not sure that most people are actually getting enough good information. Now, I'm also a real estate agent, as you're probably aware. And as a result of some marketing and websites that we have, a number of people call me, contact me, send me texts. They're interested in buying an investment property along the beach, vacation rental, if you will. Some are still calling about properties that they would rent 100% of the time and not come down and visit, except maybe once a year or twice a year, just take a look at it. But the main purpose is not a vacation home, it is to rent it. And that market is drying up pretty rapidly all along the coastlines around the country for a variety of reasons, which I'm going to get into now. A lot of people either jumped in too fast or didn't jump in fast enough. And what I want to do is give you some real good information right now so you can make some rational decisions. Kind of hard to do if you're real emotional about property. Most people that decide to buy a vacation property or a second home along the beach do so because they have spent time in the areas, some of the areas, many times over the years. Sometimes every year during the summer or during the spring, they'll come down and they'll spend time in a vacation rental or in a hotel, and they like the area, and they decide, well, why not buy? No, that's a good reason to do that. I agree. And the idea in the past was that they could rent the property and they could possibly even maybe pay for the property, and that's the concept that's kind of runs around when the family sits down and decides, hey, maybe this is something for us. So let me just inject a few things for you to consider while you're at that kitchen table in Minnesota during the wintertime, thinking, hey, maybe it's time for us to start getting a little bit warm. Now, it's a great idea, don't get me wrong. I live on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and I love it, and I'm glad that I made the decision to move here, as are most people that buy a property and actually spend time here. I'm not talking about the investors now that I just mentioned. I'm talking about people who want to actually come here for vacation. Now, the market has changed significantly. There are so many vacation rental properties on the market on the Mississippi Gulf Coast and other areas around the country that there are not enough people visiting in order to generate a significant revenue for each of those properties. So what's happened is people that were buying properties exclusively to earn income on them are finding they cannot justify owning that property, and many of them have put them on the market already. They usually come on the market fully furnished. They are often selling at a fair price, sometimes discounted. That will change over time, and I'll get into that a little bit more now. But that is pretty much wiped out our investor-only class. Now, the other group that I love working with are people who want to come down to the Mississippi Gulf Coast and buy a property that they like. It's theirs. They feel personally connected to it. They come in and they help to decorate it, and they just feel real good about it, and frankly can't wait until they can get back down here after they have gone up back home again, and they've gone back to work, and they have met with friends and family, and they're back into the groove, and then they think, hey, it's time to decompress again. For some people who are lucky enough to come down to the Mississippi Gulf Coast or any coastal area multiple times of the year, that's great. A lot of people cannot do that. They can't get away from vacation that long. So what they do is they allow their family members to come down, their adult children, if you will, to come down and spend some time in the property, and it becomes kind of a family vacation property. Now, those properties can be put on the rental market when people aren't staying in it, but it's very important that you understand that the vast majority of these properties will not pay for themselves. So you need to go into the idea of buying that vacation home, second home, that you won't earn anything at all. That, to me, is the best way to go, because then there's no pressure. You can afford it. You've got the money it takes to make the mortgage payment and pay for the insurance and pay for the electricity and all those other costs that are involved. And anything that you get from rental is extra. It just makes it more convenient. If you don't start out that way, you're going to be under a lot of pressure. If you start out with the idea that, well, we don't really need that much, and then you start thinking later on, well, you're going to take on a little more debt, so maybe we'll try to get more out of the rental of the property. That's not going to happen. You're going to get, by the end of the first year, you're going to be in the system. After a full year with number of people that have stayed there and you get good ratings, you're already in there. You're going to attract the number of people who really want to come to your place. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, there are so many properties on the market now that your place, even though it's great, and you wonder why someone wouldn't want to stay there, it's literally on the beach, it's because there's another one next to yours. If it's a condo, there's 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 in your development. There are houses around the area, and there's just too many for people to choose from. So coming back, circling around again, if you buy that property and you fully understand that you're going to make the mortgage payment and you're going to make all of the other payments if you're not paying cash for it, even if you are paying cash for it, you still owe property taxes. You're going to have to pay the utilities. You're going to have to pay for property management. And even if you're not there all the time, you need a property manager around there to make sure that your property is in good condition. You don't want somebody moving in there and not paying for it. You know, we've heard all the horror stories about that. You don't want a hurricane to come by and damage your property. You're not there to have it fixed. So having a property manager is the right thing to do. And in every case, when you're not here, you're not around the house. So when you buy that house, make sure that, again, I can't stress this enough, you can fully afford to cover all the costs involved. And that way you're going to have a great time when you come down, because there's far less stress involved than there would be if you expected all the utilities to be paid, for example. And the reason I'm saying this over and over again is because people are people. We're all humans. We start out with the idea that they heard somebody say you shouldn't buy that property if you're expecting it to pay for itself. And you go, well, okay, but what if it makes, 25% of the amount that I need? Don't go there. Don't add any percent at all. You can't do that to yourself because you have no idea how much is going to come in. And believe it or not, your property management doesn't either. Now, when I say no idea, they might come up with an idea. I'm a property manager also. Well, at least I own an interest in a property management company. I don't do the day-to-day work on it. But our property manager has an idea of how much that property might generate. But that idea has such a wide range from maybe $5,000 a year to $30,000 a year. It's wide, and you never know when it's going to come in. Now, we have a season along our coastline, and that's almost all the southern coastline areas, and that would be pretty much from New Jersey all the way down. And our season basically is about 3 months during the summertime. That's when the vast majority of the income comes in. During the wintertime, that's when the least amount comes in. Now, there are some areas that get nothing in the wintertime. I mean, they're just closed down. If you go to the areas, you'll find out there's not even a place to eat. That's not the case with some of the southern areas, such as the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We have a lot of events in the south because our winters are real mild. And so we get snowbirds and we get others that come in. So there's opportunities to earn some income during the wintertime, but it's far diminished compared to the summer. Now, the other thing to consider is if you want any money from the property, and I'm saying don't plan on getting any, but if you want any money, then obviously don't stay in your property during the high season. We have occasionally had our clients decide that they wanted to stay during June and July, and times when the highest amount will come in, and that's fine if that's what they want to do, and that's okay. They're not stressed out because they don't need the income, as I mentioned before, and they haven't changed their minds. Now, after you hold the property for a while, you might say, well, gee, maybe I need some income because I want to use my money someplace else. I've got this $1,500 amount that I have to pay every month for this property, and if I could just earn another $500. So call up the property manager and beat him over the head and say, what do I need to do here to get another $5,000 or $10,000 a year? And the answer is everything that can be done is being done to market your property. All of the different outlets that are available, such as Airbnb and VRBO, and their own website, along with social media and all those things. Any good property managers using them all to be able to get as much money as they can, because property managers typically are paid a commission based on the income that's earned. If they don't earn any income, they don't make any money, or not, at least not much money. So they're in this with you. So they're going to do everything they can to make sure. Now, I also have clients that will say, I don't want my property rented to death. I want just a few people. I love my property. I don't want it torn up. So what we do is raise the price. And we get the price high enough so that they only get a few people that come in and are willing to pay. And sometimes during the year when it's really tight, then all the other places are taken, and the property with the highest rates are the last ones to go. And we tend to agree with them on that. The idea is that you want to rent your property for a bit of a higher rate because you want a better class of people coming into that property, particularly if this is really your baby. I mean, if it really is, some people don't want anybody coming in and they won't rent it. And what they'll do is go to the property manager and say, how much will you charge me every month to keep track of my property and check it out and all that? And then the property manager charges a fee for that. And then they just let a few friends and neighbors and relatives come to the property, and they're satisfied with that. So there's no need for you to actually buy a second home or a vacation home and rent it at all. But if you decide to do that, you can work out with a property manager to try to get the best class of people in. And essentially, money is what does it. People that are looking for a bargain are generally the most likely to cause damage or at least leave the property in an unkempt manner. And those that spend a lot more money usually, but not always, will take better care of the property. So all along the coastlines now, there are properties available for sale that were set up 2 or 3 years ago, and people realize that they just are not hitting their economic targets. Those ones coming on the market are a very good opportunity for you to buy a property that is fully furnished. Now, the way appraisals work is that they don't consider anything inside the property, furniture, those things, in the pricing at all. So when you buy a property, basically they're giving you everything that's inside. And the reason that they tend to do that is because, think about this a little bit. You're living in Illinois, and your house is full of furniture, and you're going to sell it. And you think, oh, I don't want to deal with that. Where am I going to put all that furniture? I don't have another house to put it in. I might as well just let it go with that. So there's $15,000 to $25,000 in furnishings and forks and knives and all those things that you don't have to pay for, and essentially a functioning, working business. Although it's not generating enough money to pay for itself, it is still generating some income. And that's an opportunity for you that's coming up now in 2024. It's already here. It's going to grow even more toward the end of the year. You're going to start seeing some prices drop. I've seen a few come down. Most people that own these properties that are coming up for sale are sitting on income that they earned during the COVID era, income in the sense of equity in the property. And they may have made some pretty good income just a couple years ago renting the property. But nevertheless, they may have purchased a condo for $200,000 that they're now selling for $250,000 or $300,000 because that's how much the prices went up. So many of these people have some flexibility in the pricing that they're charging to you because they have a pretty nice nest egg in their equity. That's another good reason to consider buying now. If you had called me 6 months ago, I would have said wait. And now I'm telling people that when I was telling them to wait before, I'm saying start watching now. You're seeing them come on the market. You get the right one with the right deal, and that's going to be your new vacation home that, of course, you've decided you are going to be able to afford without having to rent it. Although if you decide to rent it, then you'll get a few dollars. Now let me explain something else about these properties. If they were on Airbnb and VRBO, for example, the only way to get any kind of advantage from those properties for Airbnb and VRBO rentals is to stay with the same property management company, because the property managers or hosts, that's what they call them on Airbnb, they're the ones that are listed the properties. The properties are not generally listed by the property owners. Now, some property owners will list their own, but many people have decided to go with a property manager, and the property manager has the history. So if you take over, you buy a property, and you stay with the property manager, that 5-star rating will stay with your property. It's important that you know that. Airbnb and VRBO will not allow the ratings to change from one owner to another. So you need to stay with the same property manager. And a lot of people have been bouncing around at property managers because they thought, well, I'm not getting what I need, so I need to go to another property manager. And the fact is that a lot of good property managers are out there. They've done everything they can, and the owners just need money. They're desperate. So they pop around from one property manager to another just to find out that all they did was waste their time, because each property manager charges a fee to do a setup, and they have to pay that fee over and over again, and they're not getting any more rentals as a result of that. So just keep that in mind if you decide to buy a property and you start getting desperate. You decided when you bought that property you didn't need any income, and now you do. Things change. Hey, that's life. So just keep that in mind. But it is a good time, again, in 2024 and coming up in 2025 to look at buying your vacation home. There will be some really good bargains out there, and as I said, they'll all be furnished. So it might be a good opportunity to jump in. Now, along all the coastal areas, there's something that you should be aware of before you take a look at that price for that home and say, that's the one I want. I'm going to spend $200,000 on that property, and I can pay cash for it. I can afford it. Or I can get a loan and I can make payments on it. You need to understand two more things. One is the tax structure, tax situation, that is property taxes and sales tax that'll be charged to people that are coming in because they have to pay that bill, and income tax in that state that you may be charged for any income that you've earned. So you need to know what the tax situation is there. Also, insurance. The property insurance for properties that are close to the beach has been going up significantly all around the country. It is not just on the southern coastline or the eastern coastline. It's the Pacific coastline. It's actually the interior. It's everywhere. The insurance rates have been going up literally over $1,000 a year in many cases, not just some, but in many cases. And I often will get to a point with a client where they can afford the house, they've been looking at it, and then they get a quote on the insurance, and that just throws it out. In fact, they can't even get financed because it changes their debt to income ratio, and it's high. I mean, some people are paying $500 to $800 a month for insurance, from homeowners insurance. So keep that in mind when you're shopping around. The closer you are to any type of peril, as insurance companies call it, which would be hurricanes or fires in California or earthquakes or floods, any of those kinds of things, there's going to be a big number for insurance. Now, that may be something you can afford. Most people seem to be able to work it in. I just want to make sure that you are aware of it so that you don't get sticker shock at the last minute and find that you're not going to be able to afford this property. That's the most common thing that happens here along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, is that people are not aware of that. Now, you can pretty easily find out what an insurance rate's going to be if you pick a house working with a real estate agent, which I happen to be. So if one of my clients says, well, how much would the insurance be here? So we'll pick a house that they like, that they went in there and liked it, not necessarily ready to make an offer on it, and then we'll call one of the insurance agencies, and I hate to do this, but it's the only way to do it, and ask them for a rating on that property. And two key things involved, actually three, on that insurance. One of them is going to be your credit report, so you have to have good credit if you want to get a good rate. Another one's going to be the age of the roof, and then the other one, of course, is going to be the amount that the property is being purchased for. So, and the size. There's some other factors involved too, but they're going to be close. So if you get a quote for a house on Main Street, a house 10 streets down, or even 2 or 3 or 4 miles away, maybe similar quote. At least it's a ballpark quote for you. And then when you finally pick the house that you really believe you want, before you make an offer on it, you can also get another quote on that one, and that'll give you an idea whether you can afford it or not. Well, there are a lot of things to consider when you're thinking about buying a vacation home or a second home. One of them is, what will that do for your tax situation? And you can talk to your CPA about this. There was a tax change made in 2017, which seems like a long distance from now. But as I'm speaking, if they do not renew these tax adjustments that they made pretty soon, which be by the end of 2024, we may all see an increase in our taxes. So it depends on your situation how much that this second home is available to you for as a tax benefit. The IRS does permit you to deduct a second home. But if you choose to rent the property, and you can create a business, and the business will give you some other deductions separate from being a second home. So you have some choices to make and some pretty good options available to help you earn some income. In other words, if you're renting it, when you come down to visit the property, your CPA can tell you how much you'll be able to deduct off of that trip. It won't be the entire trip, probably. I'm not giving you any advice here. I'm just saying you need to go see the CPA. So there's some advantages from the tax standpoint for owning a second home / business. And I always tell my clients, if you are buying a second home and you're going to rent it, you should create a limited liability company to own that property, and then flip that LLC into a trust. All things you can talk to your financial advisors about, or you can read about it on our websites, on this website, retirecoast.com, and you can read about it on our other sites as well. So there are a lot of advantages to buying that second home. You obviously will get in a position where the home will start to get paid off if you have a mortgage on it, and if you're renting it, some other people are going to help you pay it off. But not to a great extent now. Now, all of these things can change. After we get a kind of a clearing of these large number of vacation rentals that are converted to full-time residences, which I believe will happen over the next couple of years, we're going to see higher incomes coming to people who have the vacation homes. Since there'll be fewer in the market, there'll be tighter competition. Also, we don't know about the people that live in the interior, which tend to come down to the coast. Are they going to do better off financially after the election that's coming up? Do they feel they're going to do better off, and they'll take more vacations? We are almost back to normal from COVID, but not completely. Trends and things were pretty much set in concrete before COVID. In other words, people would take their spring break, and then they would take their holiday on the beach someplace, or they would take a cruise. All of that changed, as we know, and when it comes to vacation areas in the country, such as the Mississippi Gulf Coast, we're still feeling our way. People are still getting back to normal. So we may find that the market for vacation rentals, which has still been strong, might be a little stronger. There may be more people that are willing to rent, and there may be fewer properties out there to rent. So those could all be good things for those of you that came into buying that property with the idea that they didn't need any income from it at all. But at some point, if you want to sell that property, hopefully that property will be worth more money for you. If it has a track record of earning money, that's important too. Let me go to another point just about that, kind of extend that. When we were doing very well about several years ago, 3, 4, or 5 years ago, right after COVID hit, people just wanted to get away. There were lockdowns everywhere, and Mississippi was not locked down, for example. I can't speak to other areas. I know Florida beaches were locked down, but ours were not. And other than a short 2-week stint, the schools were open, etc. So this is pretty open on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And people were coming here that had never been here before, and we were getting just thousands and thousands. Everything we had was rented consistently, not just on the weekends, but it was rented during the week. And every new property we would put on, we would rent that property. So life was very good for property owners back in those days. And then when COVID finally started winding down and people had taken all the vacations they could possibly stomach away from their homes, they were all gone for 2 or 3 months, in some cases working remotely. Now they're all back again, and the structure changed. People weren't coming down for vacation, say, the next year because they had already spent several months down for vacation already. So we're getting back to a new normal in that respect. Plus, we have more and more baby boomers that have retired since then. And baby boomers are carrying the greatest wealth this country has ever seen. And many of them have decided that they want to sell the house where they live and they want to move someplace such as the Mississippi Gulf Coast. So they're starting to buy up some of these properties too. So things will change, but this is a great opportunity now to buy. Eventually, the vacation homes will be snapped up by people who are making shrewd buying choices now and in the next year. And then we'll be back to just a regular normal market where there won't really be very many of these vacation homes that are set up with furnishings and everything else. You'll have to come down and buy your house and do all that work, which, by the way, is definitely possible, but it is a lot of work, and it's a little more difficult to do it when you're doing it remotely. Now, we have helped clients who have built houses here kind of get it all structured and work it all out. So if that's something you want to do, that certainly can be done. We can help with that. But that's not the point of this podcast. It's not for me to try to acquire business from you. I'm trying to give you information that will help you in your decision-making process about whether you want to buy a vacation home or a second home. And there are a lot of things to consider. But the number one thing, after you have decided that you love the area enough to come here, is that your ability to afford it now and in the future as well. So thank you for coming in and listening to me rant and rave about the Mississippi Gulf Coast and about the opportunities available to you to buy that second home. And if you need any additional help with that, take a look at some of the articles we have written about the Mississippi Gulf Coast. That'll let you know that this is a great place to come. If you choose to buy a second home, I would recommend that you decide to buy one on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. So check out our website for more articles on this and other topics at retirecoast.com and listen to our other podcasts. And we also have some things for you to take a look at over on our YouTube channel too, which is retirecoast.com as well. Thank you.